Let's talk about anger. Let's talk about anger after having survived the narcissistic family system as scapegoats. And let's talk about what to do with it, how to process it, where to put it, you know. Because if you come from a narcissistic family system and if you've been scapegoated, that means that you've experienced anger coming at you from your narcissistic parent nonstop. You know, the scapegoat, as scapegoats, we are the ones who receive all that, who are targeted by the narcissistic parent all the time. And so we carry the weight of their resentment and frustrations and, dysregulated emotions on our shoulders as if it was our burden. Essentially, we learn to carry our narcissistic parents' anger as our burden. And then you add to this mix the enablers in the family system who will get angry at you, first of all, because the narcissistic parent is always angry at you, then they will get angry at you too. Because why can't there be peace in the house, right? They will enable the narcissistic parent, when they get angry at you by telling you that you have to tiptoe harder and that you have to try harder not to trigger their rage, in the household. And then you have your own feelings of anger, which you're not allowed to feel when you're the family scapegoat. You're taught that your own feelings, are misplaced. You're told that your anger is, in fact, if you get angry, then you're definitely, you definitely become a target. Your personality, your character, everything about you becomes targeted. You're told that there's something wrong with you, that you're too sensitive, that it's your temper. The problem is always you. And this is how we as scapegoats are raised around this emotion of anger. Now, I want to tell you what anger actually is so that we can clarify what's going on here. Anger is an emotion that every human being on earth feels, okay? It's part of our instinct. Anger is part of, it's a difficult emotion to feel for sure, but everybody feels that, and you can't not feel it because it's like an instinct, right? Emotions like anger and sadness and fear, those are all uncomfortable emotions, that are not enjoyable to feel, but we all feel them and we can't help not feeling them, That's what emotions are. They're like an instinct. It's a part of us. It's part of humans. Every human being will feel anger when there's injustice, okay? When they're faced with injustice, the natural response is going to be anger. They will, every human being will feel anger if there's some sort of interference in their life, right? If somebody's blocking you from doing something that you really want to do or that you need to do, and someone blocks you from that, you will experience anger. That's normal. If somebody hurts you physically or psychologically, yes, you will experience anger. Again, that's normal. Another person's anger can also trigger our own anger, That's normal. Betrayal will trigger anger. Rejection, abandonment, and also, observing someone breaking rules, like cutting you off when you're driving, or, getting ahead of you when you're waiting in line or something like that. All those things are normal reasons for human beings to feel anger. It's normal to feel anger. The trick is how to process it. How do you process this anger? How do you not hurt people when you feel it? How do you process it correctly? And how you handle your anger? That's the key. That's the part that needs to be addressed. It's not the anger itself. You're not a demon for feeling anger when you feel anger. In fact, anger is useful. Anger is useful because it will help you deal with guilt and shame. You have a right to get angry, at your narcissistic parent for the way that they treated you, for withholding love, for constantly, from robbing you of emotional safety, robbing you from, self-discovery, robbing you from a family, like a healthy family, from robbing you of peace. You have a right to get angry at those things. You have a right to get angry when you're hurt. You have a right to get angry at the enablers for constantly making you feel guilty about no longer wanting to be in a relationship that hurts you. Those are all legitimate reasons for you to get angry. So don't dismiss anger so quickly. It's an important emotion, but at the same time, it's a dangerous emotion because, when we feel angry, we can hurt someone else. We can really hurt someone else with our anger. So one thing that I would like to tell you that I find is really helpful to ease the anger is do not personalize or internalize other people's behavior. And let me explain what I mean by that. The actions of other people towards you are quite often, they quite often have nothing to do with you and everything to do with how they feel about themselves. They have everything to do with their internal world, because it's all about projections. Everything is a projection, everything. Projections, they occur when we unconsciously, attribute our internal emotions, our beliefs, and any unresolved issues that we carry within us, we project those onto our environment. So a good way for me to explain that to you, let's say you have a social anxiety, or if you have CPTSD, you'll experience this, you will go in public places and you might automatically feel like everybody hates you. Like you don't like going out because interactions are exhausting, because you feel everybody hates you. You feel everybody's judging you. You have a conversation, you go home and you second guess everything that she said, right? But what you're doing is you're projecting the shame that the parent taught you and that lives within you. You're projecting that onto your environment because most likely nobody really like in general, people don't really care. People go about their business, nobody is really looking at you, but because you feel so much shame, because a narcissistic parent puts so much shame in you, when you go out, you will feel like everybody hates you. So that's a projection. You project how you feel onto your environment and then you believe it. So having said that, this is exactly how the narcissistic parent operates, They have so much self-hatred. They have such deeply unresolved issues. They have such denial of their unresolved issues that they have this need to project all that garbage onto another person so that they can make themselves feel better. They need to put you down. They need to put you down because they themselves feel so low that they cannot handle you being good at something, or you being able to figure out something that they didn't, you being able to shine when, they're not shining so bright in certain areas of their life. They can't handle it. They can't handle that. So they will just project everything they say to you about, how horrible you are and your character and you're crazy and you're too sensitive and this and that. They're actually talking about themselves. They're not talking about you. This is the world that they live in. It's how they feel within themselves. This is how they operate their lives. And really, when you look at it from that point of view, you realize that that's just miserable. It's a miserable way of living, and it doesn't have to be your world, And when you think of it this way, it becomes easier also to do the gray rock method, because then you realize, everything they tell you, it actually has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with how toxic their inner world is, And so, by reminding yourself that their negative behaviors are not about you personally, it's really about how they operate in the world, how they live their life, their choices. It becomes easier to just kind of not take things personally and just sort of have pity for them. That's how I look at my narcissistic mother now. It's just pity, really. It's like this is how you choose to live your life, and look at this. Look at what you're doing. You destroyed your family. You destroyed your relationship with your daughter. You have so much like hatred, so much pent up frustration, so much like so much just self-hatred, you know that you can't handle that your daughter would achieve things that you couldn't achieve. You couldn't handle that. It's just not possible. So it's a very sad way of living a life, and it's really, if that's what they choose to do, that's what they choose to do. It has nothing to do with you. And if you look around yourself right now at how peaceful it is when the narcissistic parent isn't there, and you realize that truly these things come from them. They create this chaos, and they project that chaos onto you. So, and this doesn't have to be your world, okay? This doesn't have to be your world, so you can really not internalize and not personalize in that way, and tell yourself that this is just, pathetic, that you have to bring other people down to make yourself feel better. That's what your life revolves around. That's pretty damn sad, and that does not belong to me. And so that's shifting how you view the situation is quite helpful, actually, in letting go of the anger, and instead you turn it to like pity. It's really sad for them to live this way. You know what I mean? Now, the most important thing about anger is that when you feel it, you actually have to allow yourself to feel your emotions as they arise within you, because your emotions are a lot older than you are. You can't suppress them. They are part of the human experience. And the thing is that if you don't allow yourself to feel what you feel, and like in this example, if you don't allow yourself to feel angry when you're supposed to feel angry, that will end up being repressed within you, and eventually it will become a trigger. You will start projecting onto your immediate environment all those things that you're not expressing and that you're suppressing within you. The thing about anger is, it's like I said, it's not, the problem is not that you feel it. The problem is how you express it, and how you process it in your system. So when you feel angry, the first thing is remove yourself from the situation that you're in, and certainly remove yourself from the proximity of anybody that you care about, or even don't care about, because you don't want to act out on the anger. You want that to pass first, that you can sort of make a decision that suits you on the long term. Emotions are short term. They give you an immediate like reaction, like this bad, run, fight, freeze. That's what emotions do. So if you act out on your anger, like impulsively, you might end up doing something that you regret. And the other thing too is that if you're scapegoated and you haven't done the work to release that anger from your system, and if you haven't been doing the work to become mindful of what your triggers are, your anger will attach itself to the smallest things around you, and it will attempt to come out of your system that way. So it could come out like, let's say your kid breaks a cup, or your spouse leaves a dirty dish in the sink after you wash the dishes, or somebody makes a comment at you of how you could improve something, and doesn't sit right with you. anything, in your environment. It could be a small thing that triggers your anger. And by the way, triggers, it's not that they're wrong. I mean, maybe those things are, maybe you did tell your kid to put that cup away like 100 times. Maybe you did tell your spouse that you're tired, please wash your own dishes. Maybe you did. But the level of anger, that deep anger, that deep, the way that it goes so deep that we may react really strongly to a situation that doesn't warrant that kind of anger. And so when that happens, it's because you're tapping into something a lot deeper, than just your kid breaking a cup. Maybe you're tapping into how your parent treated you when you were a kid, and you broke a cup, and maybe you weren't allowed to be a kid around your house. Maybe you weren't allowed to play. Maybe you weren't allowed to do a whole bunch of stuff. And so, you will inadvertently, project that into your environment if you don't address, what lies deep down within you. So for that, we need to do self-reflection, pay attention to our triggers, and really think about where they come from before we act out on the anger. That's why it's so important. Wait for your anger to pass before you do anything. Don't react. It's always better to respond than to react. Now, the correct way of expressing anger, like let's say you're angry and you need to express it, then, if you're dealing with a narcissistic parent, the way that they express their anger towards you was by demonizing you, by telling you that, there's something wrong with you as a person. You're crazy, you're bad, you will die alone. No one will ever love you, right? Nobody will ever love someone like you. Nobody could ever love someone like you. That's what a narcissistic parent will tell you. But the healthy way of expressing anger, and that they didn't teach you, is that when you're angry, you're supposed to actually sort of zoom in on the situation and not on the person. That's the correct way of sort of expressing the anger, and that's where you should be zooming in. Zoom in on the situation, not on the person. So, for example, let's say that you have a significant other, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, someone that promised to drive you to work, right, for a certain time. Let's say your car broke down and you asked for a lift, and they said, yeah, I'll do it, But then as you wait, you're waiting to go to work, and you wait, they're in the bathroom getting ready, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and you're going to be late for work. And then what happens? Well, you end up being late for work, so you're angry, right? Let's say that's the situation. You're angry. Well, your anger is not the problem. You're allowed to be angry, sure. But there's two ways in which that you could express that. On one side, you could say, you're a jerk and you're selfish and you're always looking at yourself in the mirror and what's wrong with you, right? Or you could say it healthily. You could focus on the situation and say, look, I appreciate you driving me. I really do. But it really gives me anxiety when the things that we agree upon, when the schedule isn't followed through. So what you're doing is you're zooming in on the situation. You're zooming in on what not on the person, but on the behavior and the situation. That's the correct way of expressing the anger, if you have to express it, if it's something that you need to do. You zoom in on the situation, Now, the other thing about anger is, like I said earlier, is that, when you've been through a narcissistic family system, there's going to be a lot of, possibly a lot of resentment within you, a lot of, from all the injustice that you've been through. And it's so important for you to release that out of your system healthily and constructively. It's so important that you do that. It's so important that you prioritize your self-care, because in your narcissistic family system, your emotional care came last. The first person that mattered the most was the narcissistic parent, right? Their emotional health came first, right? And then you were dealing with the enablers who were telling you, oh, you have to, if we can handle it, then you should handle it too, right? Dumbing it down, right? Your emotional health came last in the pecking order of your narcissistic family system. Your emotional health did not matter to anyone in that system. Because if it did, it wouldn't be a narcissistic family system, and you wouldn't be a scapegoat. Because healthy families don't scapegoat, okay? So, now what you have to do is you really have to get selfish with the self-care, and releasing that anger, through like physical exercise, through painting, drawing, music, art, any form of artwork. Releasing that anger it's so important to incorporate that into your routines. It's so important for you to prioritize your self-care and make that like your number one priority. You can take a little bit of time each day to do it, but do something. Like me, for example, I go running almost every day, and if I don't feel good, if I have flashbacks or something, I go running. I run up, I have forest trails around here. I'll run up trails, and I'll put my music on, and I really do like a hard workout to release it out of my system, and I also, you also have to talk about it. It's important to talk about it with people that understand where you come from, because by talking about it, it will help you sort of understand yourself better and what triggers you, and possibly, to be able to recognize that, what triggers you, so that you don't hurt the people that you love. That's the most important thing, is that we don't pass on what was done to us onto the people that we love. So, just remember that anger is a normal response to mistreatment. Anger is not your enemy, but it's dangerous if you misuse it, because you can really hurt the people that you love if you don't process it correctly. Okay, so be very careful with how you use that anger. But when you use it healthily, it's a really good tool to have on your side, because like I said, your anger will alert you, to injustice. Your anger will let you know that, some people are not healthy for you. And it's okay for you to get angry at them. It's okay for you to get angry at them for what they did and for how they allowed the narcissistic parent to treat you, and they did nothing. It's okay for you to get angry. You're supposed to get angry, okay? Just remember to do it healthily. Remember to do it healthily, and be super mindful not to attach that anger to the people that you love. If you're dealing with someone that you love, I know that anger can feel so powerful, but always remember, I actually love this person. The anger will pass. It's an emotion. It's temporary. Emotions don't last very long. Feelings, that they last a lot longer. Feelings are a combination of your emotions and your memories and your experiences. It's sort of like the conclusion of everything. That's the stuff that you should rely on. So once the anger passes, rely on your feelings more and go, okay, it's a good thing I didn't overreact to that. That was me overreacting. Or, oh yeah, you know what, that person behaved really badly. What am I going to do to protect myself? Okay? So this is my take on processing anger, and I really hope that this helps you a little bit. And listen, the most important thing is for you to trust yourself and to be patient with yourself, because healing from this stuff really takes time. It takes time. Okay? So love yourself, trust yourself, take it easy, and take care of yourself.